play hide and seek with my dead mother. I used to play hide and seek with my mom like it was a sport. She didn't half do it. She'd wedge herself behind the curtains and stand on her tiptoes so her shoes didn't show. She'd flatten under the piano bench, hold a jar in front of her face like a goofy mask. If I took too long, she'd tap a table leg or cough on purpose so I wouldn't panic. When I found her, she'd throw her arms wide like she'd been waiting to breathe. It sounds small, I know, but when you're 6, that feeling, being seen, being found, sets the whole world straight. Then she got sick. Cancer. I'm not going to do the slow motion montage. You know what it looks like. Less hair, more medicine. The game shrank. Hide and seek turned into hide and sit. We built blanket forts so she could stay on the couch. She still counted for me, whispering numbers like we were sharing a secret. I learned to hide close, right where she could reach without getting up. We pretended that was the plan all along. After she died, the house stopped pretending. Closets were just closets. The fort went into a bin in the garage. Dad tried to keep things normal, but the kitchen sounded wrong without her humming. The curtains didn't move unless the window was actually open. I'd walk past the piano bench and feel like I was supposed to laugh, but nothing came out. Fast forward, I'm 21. You'd think time would sand the edges off. It didn't. It made a weird hollowness instead. Blurry, mostly. I did fine in classes, had a decent roommate, played intramurals because running in a circle feels like I'm doing something. But I'd see a kid in a park chasing his mom and there it was again. This heavy little ache like homesickness for a place that doesn't exist anymore. So yeah, when I say I made a wish, don't roll your eyes. It wasn't dramatic. I was on the roof of my building because sleep, it just wasn't happening. And there was a meteor shower. Everyone else had watched earlier. I had went up late. The city was quiet. I saw maybe 2 streaks of light the whole time. And I whispered it, without really planning, like my brain reached back and grabbed the first true thing it could find. I wish I could play hide and seek with her one more time. Just one more. That's it. That's the whole ritual. No candles, no Latin. Just a stupid, honest sentence I didn't even admit to myself seconds after I said it. The next morning, there was a folded piece of paper on my kitchen table. For context, I don't leave myself notes. I also lock my door. This wasn't a flyer from the hall or my passive-aggressive roommate thing. It was clean white paper, folded cleanly once. No name. I stood there for a full minute, like the paper might explode if I touched it. I opened it and my throat did that thing where you suddenly remember how to cry. It was her handwriting. Not sort of, or not like close enough. It was hers. Perfect loops on the O's, little tails on her Y's, everything. It was hers. And the note said, "Do you want to play?" Look, logically, it made no sense. I know that. But your body doesn't check with logic before it decides what's real. My hands went hot and my face went cold. I had to sit down. I turned the paper over like there'd be a reveal on the back. There was nothing. I held it to my nose because I'm an idiot and don't laugh. It smelled like her old stationery. Cedar. Flour. Like the recipe cards we made pancakes from. I should have texted someone or thrown it out, or something normal. Instead, I grabbed a pen and my hand was shaking. I wrote one stupid word. Yes. I left it on the table like that solved anything. I couldn't sit still. I went to class and heard nothing. I ate lunch and tasted nothing. I went home early because my heart wouldn't slow down and I felt like I was waiting for a fire alarm. There was another note. Same paper. Same handwriting. Hide. I'll count to 20. You know that feeling when part of your brain is yelling, "This is how horror movies start," and the other half is already in the closet? That. I didn't even think. I kicked my shoes off and sprinted around the apartment like a 5-year-old. Tried the bathroom. No, too bright. Under the bed. Dust bunnies. A hard pass. I ended up in my bedroom closet behind coats I never wear, kneeling on a shoebox. My pulse was ridiculous. I stuffed my fist in my mouth to keep quiet like I was auditioning for a cartoon. And then, and I swear this is true, I heard counting. Not loud in the air, exactly. More like inside my head, but not from me. Distant, soft, like you hear through a wall. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I got goosebumps. So intense, my shoulders hurt. The closet door eased open. Slowly. Patiently. And she looked in. It was my mother's face. The math of it, anyway. The lines and planes I could trace blindfolded. Her hair pulled back the way she wore it when she wanted to be hands-free. The little dimple at the corner of her mouth that only shows up when she's suppressing a laugh. She didn't speak. She did the same thing she always did when she found me. Pointed, raised her eyebrows like, "Gotcha," and held up a small pad of paper. "Found you. Your turn." I exhaled so hard I almost choked. I stepped out of the closet and had this insane urge to hug her. But her whole posture said, "Game first." So I nodded like I was 6 again, took the pad and the pen and wrote, "Counting," on the top line. I turned to face the wall and put my forehead on it because that's the rule. I counted out loud because that's also the rule. Slow. Fair. She moved the way I remember. Soft shoes. No hurry. I peeked at 15 because peeking is also a rule if you're me. She slid behind the couch and then changed her mind. She checked the bathroom and shook her head. She tucked behind the bedroom door and held still. I smiled into my sleeve and forced myself to keep counting. At 20, I said, "Ready or not?" and immediately felt silly for saying it. I looked behind the door, under the bed, did the whole routine. She let me miss a couple obvious spots like always. I found her curled behind the bedroom chair, tucked so small. I don't know how she did it. I tapped her shoulder. She looked up with that exact expression. "You found me. You did it." And my chest just cracked open in the best way. We didn't talk. She didn't try. Everything was on paper. She'd write, "Again?" And I'd nod. I'd write, "Counting." And she'd grin. Shut her eyes for a second like she was soaking something in. Then slip away. We played around the apartment like that for maybe an hour. It's hard to measure. Time got weird. It felt like I'd been waiting years just to do this dumb, simple thing again. And my brain was hoarding every single second it could. There were little differences. Small. She never said my name. Not once. She didn't rush the way she used to when she could tell I was getting frustrated. She just watched me more carefully, like she was studying the game right along with me. When she handed me the pad, I noticed her fingers were cool. Cool, like she'd just come in from outside. Her handwriting had tiny stutters at the end of letters, like lifting the pen took effort. None of it tripped any alarms for me because every part of me was screaming, "She's here. Take what you can get." Eventually, she paused with the pad and wrote, "Last one," and underlined it. I hated reading that. I nodded anyway. I counted. I cheated and listened for her breathing, but I heard nothing, which made me grin because she taught me that trick, and here she was using it on me. I found her behind the shower curtain because she left a shadow on the tile. I tugged the curtain back and there she was, pretending to look scandalized like we hadn't done this exact reveal 100 times before. She tapped the pad, flipped to a clean page and wrote, "Tomorrow?" That's where the adult part of my brain finally woke up. I asked for one more game and now here was tomorrow. You can feel a trap even when you want to step in it. I hesitated a second too long, and she watched my face like she was reading the weather. I wrote yes anyway. Of course I did. She smiled with her eyes and pressed her palm to mine for a second. Gentle, like matching fingerprints. Then she let go, picked up the pad and walked toward the doorway like she had somewhere to be. I followed because what else was I going to do? And by the time I hit the hall, she wasn't there. No goodbye, no door sound, just gone. I stood in my apartment like a guy who stood up too fast. My head buzzed, my hands buzzed. The place looked the same and totally not the same. I checked the peephole like an idiot. Nothing. I said, "Mom?" once, very quietly, and felt like a kid trying not to wake someone. Yeah, I didn't sleep much. It wasn't fear. It was adrenaline, plus this wild relief I couldn't wrap up neatly. I put the first note, "Want to play?" on my fridge with a dumb tourist magnet and left the others stacked on the table like they might vanish if I looked away. In the morning, there was another piece of paper under my door. I swear on everything, I did not hear anyone approach. My roommate wasn't home. The building is old and loud. You can hear the neighbors sneeze through the vents. Nothing. I opened the door to check the hall anyway. Empty. The new note said, "Same time, same place?" The question mark was sharp, like she'd pressed the pen harder at the end. Under it, she'd written my childhood nickname. That's when I cried. Not a dramatic movie sob. Quiet, stupid tears that sneak out and land on your shirt while you're trying to make coffee. I pressed the paper to my chest, like it would sink in by osmosis. All day I felt like someone had turned the world up one notch. Colors looked honest. Food actually tasted like something. I checked the time every 20 minutes like a teenager waiting for a ride. When sunset finally started painting the street orange, I put the notes in my jacket, grabbed a pen, and walked to the little neighborhood playground I grew up with. The one with the wobbly bumblebee on a spring. That's our place. The place we always used to play. It was smaller than I remembered. Everything from childhood is. The swings squeaked like they needed oil, and the slide had that dull metal look of 100,000 jeans. I sat on the bench under the maple where she used to sit when she was too tired to play and still pretended she wasn't. I felt ridiculous and exactly right at the same time. She came up the path like she just stepped out to take a phone call and was on her way back. Same coat, same walk. She raised her hand in a small wave. I stood too fast and almost tripped over the bench. We didn't talk. That part seemed fixed. She nodded at the tree, the same way she always used to when it was my turn to count. I flipped open the pad and wrote, "Counting," and set my forehead against the bark, because somewhere in my head, a 6-year-old was very strict about the rules. I counted steady. I cheated at 12 and peaked because apparently growth is a myth. She laughed without sound and hid behind the slide and then changed her mind and relocated behind the maintenance shed, like she knew exactly how long I'd let her get away with it. I took my time finding her and didn't. Twice. On purpose. Because watching her step out with that little victorious face felt like getting a second childhood handed to me in pieces. We played 3 rounds. 4. It got colder. Yeah, I didn't care. A couple of times I noticed the off parts again. Her face looked perfect until the light hit her wrong and then a shadow sat a little too long on her cheek before sliding off. When I brushed her sleeve by accident, it felt like the fabric had been in a drawer for months. Not musty, just untouched. When she wrote, her hand trembled at the end of a stroke, and the tail of a letter shook out like a small aftershock. None of it mattered in the moment. I was greedy for the feeling. If you've gone thirsty long enough, you don't argue with the shape of the cup. We stopped because the lamps kicked on and the temperature dropped another degree. The kind of cold that turns your breath mean. She tapped the pad, wrote, "Last one tonight." Then under it, "Tomorrow?" Again, like testing me to see if my answer would change. "It's a yes," I said out loud before I remembered she couldn't answer. I wrote it down, big, so there was no mistaking it. Yes, in full capital letters. She traced the word with her fingertip, like she was committing it to memory. Then she tapped the notebook against her palm twice. Her old signal for your turn next time. Gave me a smile, that wasn't big or theatrical, just warm and familiar. She turned toward the path and walked. Halfway down, she was gone. Not around a corner, she just disappeared. I walked home slow on purpose. I wanted to drag the feeling out, like chewing gum past the taste. In my kitchen, I laid all the notes out in a row like a weird little museum exhibit, and stared at them until my eyes watered. I put the pad next to my phone so I wouldn't forget in the morning. This is where I should say I had doubts, right? That something about it felt wrong and I ignored it. Honestly, not then. I clocked the weirdness, the silence, the notes, the way she never said my name. But grief is a great editor. It cuts what doesn't fit in the story you want. I went to bed with the pad on my nightstand. I slept like a kid after a pool day. Heavy, dreamless, the kind of sleep you fall into and never feel the drop. When my alarm went off, I woke up already smiling, which is not a thing I do. There was a new note waiting on the kitchen table when I shuffled out in socks. "See you tonight." Under it in small letters. "Don't be late." Yeah, I laughed because of course she'd say that. She hated late. She used to clap and say, "Games need rules," and I'd argue, and she'd let me win, and then we'd both quietly follow the rules anyway. I stuck the new note on the fridge with the others. I poured coffee. I looked at the clock, and I just couldn't wait to see my mom again. If I'd known where it was heading, maybe I would have said no. Maybe. But if you handed that version of me a list of warnings, I would have read it and still shown up at sunset. Because for the first time in years, I felt something like joy that didn't make me feel stupid for feeling it. And all it cost, right then, was a yes. I kept thinking it was going to taper off, like a dream that fades after the first week. I figured eventually the notes would stop showing. The handwriting would smear into nonsense, and I'd convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. But it didn't fade. It got stronger. The routine built itself around me. Every night, no matter what, there'd be a new note. On the kitchen table, slid under the door. Once, folded perfectly and tucked into my coat pocket when I swear I hadn't worn that coat in days. The message never changed much. Same time, same place. Don't be late. Sometimes if I'd played badly the night before, like hiding in a spot too obvious, there'd be an extra line. Try harder, or don't make it too easy. I should have been freaked out, right? But in the beginning, I wasn't. Honestly, I felt lighter, happier. I had something to look forward to. I wasn't just another kid grinding through college and letting days blur into each other. I had a secret, and it was her. For the first 2 weeks, I didn't miss a single night. I'd walk to the playground as the sun dipped, and she'd be there, waiting, notebook in hand, always smiling, always ready. We'd play until the street lamps buzzed, and my hands were stiff with cold. Then she'd write, "Tomorrow?" And I'd nod. That was it. That was enough. But the thing about routines is, they get heavy. I started planning my whole day around the game. I'd skip study groups, skip meals, skip hangouts with people from class because I couldn't risk being late. If the clock hit sunset and I wasn't on my way, I felt sick. The one night I showed up 10 minutes late, she was already waiting there. at the swings, and the note she showed me that night didn't say counting or your turn. It said, "Don't do that again." The handwriting was shaky, pressed really hard, like the pen was seconds from breaking. That should have been my first red flag. Well, many red flags, but I laughed it off, tucked it in my jacket pocket, and told myself she was just protective or worried. I wanted so badly to believe this was still the mother I'd lost, the one who always kept the game gentle, never scary. I ignored the weight of the letters. The truth hit when I broke a rule. It wasn't intentional. I had a brutal day. 2 exams back to back, plus a group project where no one pulled their weight. You know the type. I came home, collapsed on the couch, and thought, just one night off. She'll understand. She's my mom. She'll let me rest. So I skipped. Around midnight, I woke up to scratching. Scratching. Slow, dragging lines like fingernails down wood on my bedroom door. I sat frozen under the blanket until I saw it. A folded piece of paper sliding through the gap at the bottom. My whole body went cold. I reached for it with shaking hands and unfolded it. "As soon as you read this, I will start counting down from 100. Hide." I almost dropped it, and then I heard it faint inside my walls, inside my head. I don't even know where from.
99, 98, 97.
I didn't think. I ran. Not out of my apartment. God knows why. Maybe some part of me believed that leaving would make it worse. So I crammed myself in the closet, behind the coats, buried under boxes, heart slamming so loud I thought she'd hear it. The counting kept going. Closer.
70, 69, 68.
I pressed my fist into my mouth to stop the noise. My whole body shook. At 40, I swear I smelled her perfume. Faded lavender and laundry soap. At 20, the closet door creaked open. Through the crack, I saw her. But it wasn't her. Not anymore. Her skin sagged like it didn't belong, hanging loose over her bones. Her teeth were sharp, jagged, too many. Her eyes were a raw, bloodshot red, like something had peeled back the human parts and left only the hunger. She sniffed the air, sniffed like an animal catching a scent. I thought I was dead. But after a long, horrible minute, she straightened, wiped her hands on her dress like she was dirty, and walked out. The counting stopped. The apartment went silent. I didn't move for hours. When I finally crawled out, the note was still there on the floor, but the ink had bled so much it looked like veins spreading through a page. The next night, I went to the playground. She was waiting, perfectly normal again. Her smile, her hair, her coat, the notebook in her hands like nothing had happened. She showed me the first note.
Counting.
But then she flipped to a second page.
You can't say no. Ever.
That was it. That was the deal. I played. I had no choice. After that night, the game wasn't fun anymore. It was survival. She made me play every single night. No excuses. If I was late, the notes got angrier. If I tried to hide in the same spot twice, she'd write, "Don't be lazy. Try harder." She started circling me during games, lingering longer than she should have, like she wanted me to feel her breath on my neck. And the offness, it got harder to ignore. Her smile stayed too long. Her handwriting grew shakier, letters dragging across the page like her hands didn't want to stop. Sometimes when she stepped into the lamplight, her shadow didn't line up with her body. But I still played, because the one time I hadn't, I saw what she really was. And I couldn't let that happen again. You ever live with a secret so heavy it starts to warp your whole life? That was me. Friends noticed I was flaking. Professors noticed my grades sliding. My roommates asked me why I was sneaking out every night. I just shrugged. What was I supposed to say? "Sorry, man, I'm playing hide and seek with my dead mom, and if I skip, she turns into a monster that hunts me down." Yeah, that'd go over well. So I kept my mouth shut. I let everything else crumble as long as I showed up every night at that playground. And for 3 months, that's how it went. Every night, hide and seek. Every morning, a new note, reminding me, keeping me in line. Until I made my second mistake. I met someone, a girl from class. We started talking after a group project, went for coffee, started hanging out more. For the first time in months, I felt normal, happy even, and that was enough to make me forget. One night, I stayed too long at her place. We fell asleep watching some dumb movie. For the second time since that wish, I didn't go to the playground. I didn't play. When I woke up, the first thing I saw was a note. Not under my door this time. On hers. Written in what looked like blood. "As soon as you wake up, I'll start counting down from 100. Hide." When I found that note taped to her door, the one smeared in red ink, or blood, or whatever it was, I nearly tore it up. Like if I destroyed it fast enough, the words would stop being true. But it doesn't work like that. As soon as you wake up, I'll start counting down from 100. I read it once, and the numbers started. Soft, icy, in my skull. 99. 98. Panic does things to you. Makes you stupid. I didn't run outside. Didn't grab my girlfriend. Didn't even try to explain. I bolted into her closet. Crammed myself behind a laundry basket and her coats. Just like I'd been doing at my place weeks before. The counting kept going.
84. 83. 82.
The scratching came next, not at her door. Inside, like claws dragging over the drywall, circling the room. My girlfriend stirred in bed, groaned, rolled over. She didn't wake. I don't think she even heard it. I held my breath until I was dizzy.
40. 39. 38.
The closet door shuttered. A shadow stretched across the crack of light. My heart tried to hammer its way out of my chest. And then I saw her face. Or what was left of it. Her skin was sagging, slipping like wax near a flame. Her teeth were jagged, too long for her mouth, pushing at her lips like they wanted out. And her eyes, blood-red pits ringed in purple veins. She Her breath came in short, animal bursts. She sniffed at the air, and when her gaze swept past the closet, I swear she smiled.
10, 9, 8.
I almost fainted. She leaned closer, close enough that I could see every crack in her drying skin, close enough to hear the wet click of her throat.
3, 2.
And then she stopped, straightened, tilted her head as if listening to something I couldn't hear. She left, just walked out. The counting stopped. When I crawled out, my girlfriend was still asleep, undisturbed. On the nightstand was a fresh note in the same familiar handwriting.
You can't forget me. You can't replace me.
Underneath, one more line.
Play tomorrow. Don't ever make me look for you again.
That was the rule. Not spoken, not explained, but hammered into me with enough fear that I didn't need it spelled out twice. If I didn't play, she hunted me. If I tried to replace her, she punished me. From then on, the game wasn't optional. It was carved into my life like gravity. At first, I tried to convince myself I could live with it. It wasn't like she was asking for much. 1 game a night, a couple hours. What's that compared to my whole life? But it eats at you, knowing there's something waiting every night, whether you want it or not. Knowing you're not allowed to say no. I started living in countdowns, counting hours until sunset, counting steps to the playground, counting my own breaths while I waited in whatever corner I'd chosen to hide. She always found me. And every time she did, I noticed something new. Something wrong. One night, her jaw unhinged wider than it should have when she smiled. Another night, her finger bent too far back when she wrote. Once, she brushed past me. Her skin was damp, slick, like meat that had sat out too long. But she always wrote the same thing again after.
Found you. Again tomorrow?
Like it was still a game, like nothing had changed. The toll built slowly. Then all at once, I stopped sleeping well. Even when the games ended, I'd lie awake waiting for scratching at my door. I stopped eating, stomach knotted too tight, my grades tanked, my girlfriend. Yeah, we didn't last long. How do you explain to someone that you can't hang out past sundown because her dead mom demands a nightly game of hide and seek? I didn't tell her. I just drifted away until she stopped calling. And part of me was relieved, because I knew what would have happened if I let her get too close. 3 months, 90 nights, 90 games. I was hollowed out. And that's when I realized the game didn't have an end. There was no finish line, no last round. She wasn't here for a reunion. She wasn't here to give me comfort. She was keeping me. The final straw came on a night I'll never forget. I was hiding under the slide, the same spot I'd used as a kid. I thought maybe, stupidly, some old memory might make her, keep her gentle. She found me in seconds. Not unusual, but when she crouched down this time, she didn't write a note. She opened her mouth and she screamed. It wasn't human. Just a guttural, tearing shriek that rattled the bolts in the playground. It shook the air in my lungs and made my ears bleed. I froze. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. She leaned in close, her jaw still open too wide, eyes burning red. Her breath was rot and dirt and something foul. And then only then, she held up the notebook. After that horrid, banshee-like scream. The words were so shaky, they were barely legible. Don't forget the rules.
Don't ever stop playing.
After that scream, after the way my ears rang for hours and I couldn't stop shaking, I knew there wasn't going to be an ending, no final round, no one more time. This wasn't my mother. It couldn't have been. It wasn't a gift, it was a leash. And I'd looped it around my neck the night I made that stupid wish. But knowing doesn't help. You can't just decide to stop breathing. You can't decide to stop playing. I tried, believe me, I tried. One more night, I didn't go to the playground. I sat on the floor of my apartment with my back against the door, clutching a kitchen knife like it would matter. The clock ticked past sunset. Nothing happened. For an hour, 2 hours, nothing. I thought maybe, just maybe it had been a bluff, that she needed me as much as I needed her. Then the scratching started, inside my walls. Notes began sliding out from under the couch cushions, from the fridge, from between my textbooks, each one of them with the same words over and over.
As soon as you read this, I'll start counting down from 100. Hide.
I couldn't not read them. You can't close your eyes to letters you know by heart. And as soon as the numbers started, the knife was useless in my hand. I was hiding before I could even think about it. I wish I could explain what 3 months of what this is does to you. 90 days of rules you can't break. 90 nights of your body tensing at sundown, knowing the game is waiting. I stopped eating real meals. I lived off gas station coffee and crackers. My professor sent warnings. My boss fired me from my part-time job. I already told you about my girlfriend. And well, yeah. What can I say? It's not you, it's my dead mom who hunts me down if I don't play hide and seek. I became a ghost in my own life. The only place I was real was in the game. Every time she was worse, skin drooping like it might slough off, teeth showing even when she didn't smile, fingers twitching like she wanted to tear instead of write. But the notebook always came out, and the words were always the same.
Found you. Again tomorrow?
Like a joke, like she knew exactly how far gone I was. The last game wasn't special. It was almost boring, the way nightmares can get when you have them too often. Same playground, same lamps buzzing, same crunch of gravel under my shoes as I picked a hiding spot. I chose under the slide again. That dumb instinct that maybe if I clung to something from my childhood, she'd soften. I don't know why I tried it again. I crouched there, knees against my chest. I waited for the counting to end. And sure enough, she came. She found me so much faster. Her face leaned down in the dark under the slide. She didn't even smile. Her jaw opened wider and wider. And that terrible shriek again, louder this time, so loud the metal slide rattled against its bolts and the ground itself shook. I felt a warm wetness in my ears. I was being metaphorical last time, but this time it was literal. Literal blood. And I clamped my hands down over them like it mattered. The sound was inside me. I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't even blink. She leaned in close enough that I could smell her. That same rot. And she just said it again. Don't forget the rules. Don't ever stop playing. That's when I realized this wasn't about her wanting me. This was about the game wanting me. Whatever came through that wish, it wasn't her. It was something wearing her face, using her memory like bait. That was 3 nights ago. I haven't slept since. I found out that this game doesn't reset if you haven't slept. But I don't know if my eyes closing will make something terrible happen. I can hear her even now, scratching somewhere in the pipes. I don't think I'm gonna last much longer. I'm writing this down because maybe someone else needs this warning. Don't make wishes you can't take back. Don't ask for something just because you're lonely enough to believe it won't cost you. Because if you're wrong, you don't just get what you asked for. You get it forever. And forever is a long, long time to keep hiding.